But what I think is even more important than that is the talent that we bring. What makes me most proud at LifeFlight is the people that work here. I like to say I have the least important job here. I often feel that way, I really do. The people that work in the back of this thing and the pilot that flies in the front are the best of the best. I would unequivocally trust any one of them at any point without question with any family member of mine. And they're trained such that they can handle most any situation they encounter. They can replicate what goes on in most circumstances in the first 30 minutes of your ED stay at the best hospitals in the world. They bring the ICU level care right to the patient. And that can be at an intersection of 2 logging roads, that can be at a hospital in northern Maine.
All right, welcome back to the More Than Outdoors podcast, the podcast where we talk about the people, places, and passions that drive Maine's outdoor recreation economy. As always, I'm your host, Austin French, with my co-host,
Sam Andrews.
Booyah. And
There's
today,
a bald eagle flying right by us.
we have to be outdoors. Like, we have to see these things.
Yes.
You don't get that in a regular podcast studio, as I'm sure for those of you who are listening and watching the video. We got a pretty great backdrop today. And a fantastic guest. Joe, thank you so much for being here. Very excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
If you don't mind, just so the audience has an idea of who they're going to be listening to for the next 30, 40 minutes. Who are you? What do you do?
Sure. Well, thanks, Austin, and thanks, Sam, for having me. This is great. My name is Joe Kellner. I'm the CEO here at LifeFlight of Maine, which is Maine's only nonprofit critical care air ambulance organization. It's a mouthful, but we'll, I'm sure, get into what we do exactly. So pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me.
That's awesome. So what we like to kind of do in the beginning of all these episodes is, we think it's really cool to start to understand, like, what are the journeys that so many of our guests kind of travel through to kind of get to where they are. And obviously you're in a very unique place with a very unique organization. So I know I personally would just love to hear, like, what did that journey look like for you to all of a sudden now you're with LifeFlight?
It's really interesting you ask that, because I can make a connection back to the purpose of your podcast, which
awesome.
I think is great and helpful. So scouting actually led me to this career in a very winding way that I'll talk about a bit. So when I left high school, I went to UMaine Orono. And I actually went for computer engineering, which I quickly learned was not my path. And there were, I think, 5 other majors that followed that before I got to my path, but we'll get there. Yeah. So while I was in scouting, before going to college, I had met a couple of people that I looked up to that were EMTs. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Incidentally, I went through my Eagle Scout, and during the Eagle Scout boards, there was one question I got wrong. And it was first aid. I completely botched it. I had no idea what the answer was. It had to do with bleeding control. I had no idea. So anyway, I very much enjoyed all things outdoors, really enjoyed, multi-day backpacking trips, ATV riding, anything that takes me deep into the woods away from civilization. And that's really always been a passion of mine and developed over time. So I got to thinking that these guys who I really like and respect, they found a lot of value in having their EMT training. So I thought, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should look into that. Now, blood, bodily fluids at that time, no interest, 0 interest. But I wanted to be prepared in case I ever encountered something like that where I needed to be helpful either for somebody else or for myself. So long story monotonous, as I like to say, I found out that there was a volunteer ambulance service on campus at UMaine. It's called UVAC. So I strolled down there one night, I think it was November, and I talked with the on-duty crew and just asked them, what's the pathway? How can I get this training? I think it'd be really valuable. I don't ever want to get a license or anything like that. Clearly that went a different path, so spoiler alert. And they hooked me up and they talked me through how to do that, but they also somehow, I still don't know how, talked me into doing one ride-along shift with them. Come see what we do here. At the time, there were very few people that were part of that service. It was a very small organization. It's grown a lot since then. But I did one ride-along and I was hooked. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I had no idea what I was doing. Probably still to some degree don't. But really enjoyed the work and really enjoyed that human connection. And nobody ever expects to need an ambulance. Nobody ever expects to need LifeFlight. But being able to be that resource for that person was really invigorating for me. Mm-hmm. So through college, I spent the time that a lot of people spend at frat parties. I was on the ambulance. I was doing,
Yeah.
100, 120 hours a week volunteering on the ambulance. My grades reflected that, so that was something I had to deal with. But, left college not really sure exactly what I wanted to do, but knew I really loved this work. Got into a paid EMS opportunity here in Bangor with a local ambulance, and that's how I got to know LifeFlight. There's a pretty deep connection between that organization and LifeFlight. So that's my story that connects me to here. There's a lot of stuff that happened in between those times,
Yeah.
but I want to, I guess,
That's awesome.
pause there for you.
That's awesome.
I also went through EMT training. I'm EMT basic, and just like the connections to the people when you are taking that training and learning, and it was really cool for me. It was like 3 days a week. I was dedicating 4 hours a night to learning. And I feel like it really informs me as somebody who recreates in the outdoors to make really good, thoughtful decisions and plan and prepare so that when I'm out in the wilderness, I know what to expect and can kind of take care of a situation if it comes up. And being a leader in the outdoors too, I feel like wilderness medicine is like very, very important, but having that EMT background is great. But I felt like I shied away from it because of because of the blood and the craziness and like all the really like there's a lot of crazy things that happen, and
Sure.
you all are on the front lines of that, and that was hard for me to see myself in that. So I admire the work that you do and LifeFlight does.
Yeah. Well, and I think to your point, right? It's these are all the skills that we hope we never have to use. But fortunately, we have folks like all of the incredible people that you guys have working with LifeFlight, where when those unfortunate situations happen, we have the services available to try to support those people in the best way possible. So I think that's as we were talking of like oh, we're gonna have LifeFlight on the podcast. This is so cool. Like, how does it tie into the outdoor industry? Well, like so much of it is because we go to these incredibly remote places oftentimes because we want the breathtaking view at the top of the mountain, or we want to be on that river that nobody else ends up on. And when things happen, you're really far away from not just civilization, but high quality healthcare providers.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, I love what you do. I respect it a lot. And, unfortunately, I've had people in my life who have unfortunately had to use your service, and I've been extremely appreciative to see them in the hospital after that. So, kudos to you guys for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it would be cool for you to share a little bit of that tie of how do you see LifeFlight in this greater outdoor recreation industry, if that ties in for you at all. I know we've had some good conversations before this about it, so
Yeah, so it absolutely ties in, and LifeFlight, I think, plays a key role in supporting Maine's outdoor recreation industry. I thought about this actually just last week. I was up in Rangeley camping and doing some ATV riding up there, and very quickly you go out of cell phone reception, and I saw one of our signs that we put up, gosh, probably 10, 15 years ago, marking a remote landing zone. And I got to thinking about, how that must feel to be in that situation in the middle of the woods, look down at your cell phone with no reception, have somebody with you in your party that's gravely injured, and wonder what to do. So I think, people don't think about LifeFlight, I think, very often when they're planning their trip or they're planning to be in the outdoors and LifeFlight's role. And that's okay. We don't expect them to. We don't want them to need us. And a perfect world, we wouldn't need to exist, right? But things do happen. Accidents do happen. And I like to think that we provide a safety net for recreating in Maine that allows people that find themselves in an unfortunate, difficult situation to have what we refer to as a second chance. So, that's awesome.
Yeah, I noticed that in the film you all just produced. I don't know who produced it for you, but it was very well done.
Lone Spruce, yep.
Yeah, and just kind of spoke to that of just giving this person another chance, and that it was just really cool, and that's tied into the Maine Outdoor Film Festival, and so they're part of this greater outdoor recreation economy too in
Sure.
Maine. So if you haven't seen it, you should definitely listen to it.
For sure.
It's on our
Or
website.
Watch it,
Yeah.
rather.
Well-
lifeflightmaine.org.
We'll make sure the links are all in the description. Do not worry.
Awesome.
But
Yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
definitely worth the 8 minutes. I really enjoyed that.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So one thing I know I was really curious about when we were kind of mapping out, like, okay, what is this conversation gonna kind of look like? Is, oftentimes you have those unfortunate events that do end up happening, right? And all of a sudden you guys are getting the phone call, and the helicopter or the plane is up in the air. Are there things that you all are seeing from the critical care provider side of, like, the 2 or 3 things that you would try to tell everyone who's going to go out into the outdoors, so hopefully they don't have to then make the call? Like, what are some of those preventative things that we feel like everybody could realistically do if they go and recreate?
That's a great question, and certainly not my area of expertise, but I'll tell you what I do. So, number one, have a plan. Always have a plan, and always have an exit strategy. If your plan's not working, know how you're going to get out. Specifically to LifeFlight, and maybe it's just because I'm so close to the organization, if I'm walking in the woods or riding an ATV or whatever it may be, I'm always looking for landing zones. Areas that are about 100 feet by 100 feet that the helicopter could land if we need to. And I might know that it's a mile behind me, but at least I know there's a place. A means of communication, we're lucky to live in 2025 when it comes to communication in the outdoors.
Yeah.
I shout out to Garmin InReach. They've been a big supporter of us, but there are several others that offer that satellite connectivity that can connect people to LifeFlight, but a means of communication is great. And some of the obvious stuff, make sure somebody knows where you are, bring a first aid kit, those types of things. But those are a few key tips that I would keep in mind.
Cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's a big part of the planning and preparing that helps kind of prevent all of the crazy things that can happen.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, there's all of these rural places that people are looking to recreate, but there are also lots of people that live in those communities. And I know that healthcare in rural Maine is a big topic right now. And there's a lot of hospitals closing, and care is becoming more challenging for Maine residents, which is a lot of our audience and who we care about and who we want recreating in our outdoor spaces. But yeah, speak to that and kind of like what you all are doing to support those rural communities.
Yeah, so Sam, I'm worried. I'm really worried about healthcare in Maine. I'm worried about healthcare in rural America, and more healthcare everywhere in America as far as access goes. Access is a key tenet of what LifeFlight does. We're always trying to find ways to increase access to our services so we can be there every time somebody needs us. But access to healthcare is something that people think about when they look at places they want to live, and when they think about aging in place, when they think about recreating. They're thinking about, hopefully, healthcare available in their communities. And in order for communities to thrive, access to healthcare is critical to that. There's a lot going on with challenging pressures in healthcare. So financial, of course, being the biggest challenging pressure. Things have gotten a lot more expensive. Inflation has been a big challenge. We see that as well at LifeFlight. For us, there's been tremendous impact to costs in the last couple of years, even in the last several months due to tariffs. Our helicopters come from Italy, where there's been some substantial tariffs, which impact the cost of care and cause organizations like us to have to think about, are we charging enough to cover our costs, which of course is our goal. Reimbursement is a big challenge, and that transcends commercial insurance carriers, government payers like Medicare and Medicaid, and with Medicaid cuts that are scheduled to take effect in the next couple of years, I'm very anxious about what that could do to Maine's healthcare infrastructure. So what we want to see at LifeFlight is people having access to care, being able to age in place, and our rural communities in Maine to continue to stay vibrant like they are. People to feel comfortable being in the outdoors in Rangeley, in Fort Kent, wherever it may be. We're trying to do our part to help with that. We are always trying to find ways to grow and expand and follow our hashtag right there when you need us. That's what LifeFlight strives to do, and we do that in a number of ways. One of those ways is to try to keep costs as low as we can while covering our expenses. One of the things that's interesting is that as people lose access to health insurance coverage or it becomes more expensive, And even in a lot of cases, people that have health insurance coverage with deductibles near $10,000, they can't afford our services. What we do is expensive. Transparently, it's expensive. But we transport people regardless of their ability to pay. So the person that has insurance today that may not have insurance 2 years from now is still going to potentially need our service, no more or no less, based on their ability to pay. And our promise to be there doesn't change based on that. That's a key tenet. We work really hard to provide high-level medical care. So the helicopter you see behind us, it's really cool. It's a tool in the toolbox.
It is really
And
cool.
speed is often really important. But what I think is even more important than that is the talent that we bring. What makes me most proud at LifeFlight is the people that work here. I like to say I have the least important job here. I often feel that way, I really do. The people that work in the back of this thing and the pilot that flies in the front are the best of the best. I would unequivocally trust any one of them at any point without question with any family member of mine. And they're trained such that they can handle most any situation they encounter. They can replicate what goes on in most circumstances in the first 30 minutes of your ED stay at the best hospitals in the world. They bring the ICU level care right to the patient. And that can be at an intersection of 2 logging roads, that can be at a hospital in northern Maine. So we are trying to ensure sustainability and growth so that we can continue to be that safety net as healthcare resources inevitably will contract to allow people to continue to live in those rural communities. So long answer, but it's a big topic.
Yeah, it is a big topic, and it's more than just helicopters, right?
Yeah, it is
one
more
of your
than just helicopters.
slogans.
Exactly.
And we're more than outdoors, so I like how that lines up, and it's a big thing, and I think you did a great job explaining. I think there's so many things that are going on right now, and we're all adapting to the changes and trying to look into the future and doing our best to do what we can with what we have. And so it sounds like that's what you're doing.
We're trying.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of it comes down to, like, everything that is very complicated is also usually extremely worth it, right?
Sure.
So like when you're dealing with, extremely serious situations, anytime the helicopter takes off, more or less, you know what I mean? And so, it's very complicated, and there's so many different variables that you all are doing, like that you're dealing with on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, you're doing it because there's incredible value in the service that you all provide. And we certainly don't ever want to see you guys not here. You know what I mean? Like, because there are so many places in our state that, fortunately those communities really rely on so many different forms of recreation to be able to really thrive. And we want to make sure that they continue to have these resources available to them in whatever way, shape, or form that can be. And that's always going to be a really dynamic question and answer. So none of us are perfect, and we don't have the perfect answer all the time. But I think it's always important. Like, are we continuing to stride towards something that really is making that impact we want to see?
Yeah, if you're holding still, you're moving backwards, right?
Totally.
We always have to be trying to move the needle forward through innovation and new ways of doing things that we haven't thought of yet.
Totally.
Yep, totally agree.
So curious, as we kind of look ahead a little bit, what's on the horizon for LifeFlight? Like, I can only imagine you're dealing with so many different pieces of the puzzle, and how are you trying to, provide the same services or add new services or whatever the pieces are. So I'm fascinated to kind of hear that part of the puzzle too.
Yeah, we're trying to think in longer terms or long time horizons, and making sure, again, the service is sustainable and there when you need us today or 10 years from now, whatever that looks like. We have partnered a couple of times now, and we're looking to partner again with the Rue Institute, which is, if folks don't know, it's part of Northeastern University. They do a lot in data and analytics and AI work to help do some predictive modeling and analytics about what the demand is going to be for LifeFlight in the future. What are we doing today? What are we going to be doing 10 years from now? And what might we not even know about that is going to impact that demand in the future? So that's one of the things we're doing to prepare. We're also going to be going through a strategic planning exercise here starting in the early spring of 26. I can't believe I'm saying that, 26. To, again, think about parsing that data and translating that into how we think about how many bases does LifeFlight need? How many helicopters do we need to meet reliability? I'll give you another example with our airplane. We have one airplane now but whenever that airplane's being maintained or is being used for training or anything like that, it's not available to patients. We probably need 2 airplanes. We're going to be talking about that a lot in the future. Those are the types of things we're thinking about. We want to be able to serve as many communities as reliably as possible, and we feel that everybody should have access to this service. It's not without substantial cost.
Sure.
Another thing we're doing that I did forget to mention, which you can't see in the camera, but behind the camera is one of our brand new ground units that we were lucky to get some congressionally directed spending to start up a ground critical care program. So when our helicopters can't fly due to weather, if our airplane's not available, or if patients that are otherwise just appropriate for ground versus air, it allows us another tool in the toolbox to get the team to the patient and the patient transported. So that's the way we think. We're thinking about what the aircraft of the future looks like. Is it something that runs off of jet fuel still?
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean, that market is changing quickly and dynamically. And then it's important, I think, as we talk about the future, to not only think about that type of infrastructure, but also clinical care. My EMT instructor, I'll never forget my EMT class either, said, I'm going to teach you this book and half of it is not going to be true, 5 years from now or whatever she happened to say. So, that stuck with me. Medicine changes dynamically all the time. The science advances all the time, and the treatments that we were doing 5 years ago are not the treatments we're doing today, or they've changed or evolved. The medications we give change. And always being on the leading edge of that is important. If you'll allow me, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we do that and how we think about our aircraft fleet and how we do fund it. So I talked about billing from insurance companies, but there's a whole nother piece of LifeFlight that I think is important for your listeners to know about. And a lot of our organization runs on philanthropy, generous donations. Since its inception, the LifeFlight Foundation's raised, I'm going to say about $45 million now. It's ever growing, which is why I'm hedging a little bit on that number to support critical infrastructure for LifeFlight, including helicopters, but also medical equipment. They just supported the purchase of brand new ultrasounds. We do ultrasounds in the back of helicopters. We also do a lot of what we call human patient simulation for training for our crews. So our crews, they may start their morning taking care of a 26-week baby that was born prematurely, and then after that they're dealing with an 80-year-old patient having a stroke, and they need to be able to deal with those patients and everything in between. So we train. Those simulators are about $90,000 a piece, and we rely on philanthropy. We make a promise to Maine to be the best we can possibly be. We could buy cheaper helicopters that are less capable. We don't have to do that simulator training. We don't have to train our people to the level we train them to, but we feel we owe it to the people that don't have a choice in who shows up in their emergency. And that's the investment we've asked donors to make in the organization, to make sure not only can we provide the service, but can we provide the service at a level that we'd want for our family and loved ones too.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's really important. I don't think people realize that LifeFlight is a nonprofit and that you have to fundraise your money to be able to do the things and offer the things that you do. So it's a big job that you have.
Sure. I love it every day, sincerely.
So
Good. Yeah. Well, we have a kind of fun session that we do towards the end that is more lighthearted and to kind of learn a little bit more about you and things you like to do in the outdoors. So get ready.
Yeah.
We normally call it
Voices from the Summit, which if you're in the helicopter, you are probably at the summit of everything.
it's Voices from the Helicopter today.
Yeah. So curious, I know you talked a little bit about, really enjoying the outdoors. So mountains, lakes, or ocean? What's your main happy place?
Wow. I think nothing beats, this is going to sound weird maybe, nothing beats the smell of a Maine lake in the summer. That's it.
It's so funny because I feel like I smell the ocean and that is like my happy place.
Yeah.
But a Maine lake, yeah.
Yeah.
I love a Maine lake. Best advice you've ever received as a leader?
Oh, wow. Best advice. I'd say it's simple. Be humble. Be willing to learn. Be willing to be wrong. Right? It all ties together.
Oftentimes, the simplest advice is the truest.
For sure.
All right. So this is something. Describe the future of Maine's outdoor recreation economy in just one word.
Wow. I'd say it's bright.
Bright. Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Bright future. Most underrated skill in emergency response.
Wow. Underrated skill in emergency response. MacGyverism.
Oh,
Yeah.
ain't that a
I
fact?
don't even know. Should I know that as an EMT?
I don't know that that's necessarily the
Was that in
technical
my
term.
training?
I'm not sure it's a word actually. But
Yeah, I don't think that's in the textbook. but I love it. All right, so last question. If you could shout one message from the summit of Katahdin, what would it be?
Come live in Maine.
Yes.
I love that.
What an epic way to end this interview.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you both. This is great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned earlier, we will make sure that all of your social media handles and your website all get included in the description. For those of you who, for whatever reason, haven't yet, make sure you go check all the folks out at LifeFlight and make sure you're subscribing More Than Outdoors podcast on all of the platforms. I think we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts at this point. So, and fortunately, it's all More Than Outdoors podcast. So, Joe, thank you again so much for being able to come on. And
So great to meet you both. Thanks for having me.
Hopefully we won't see you outside.
yeah, hopefully we will not see you outside unless we're just recreating together.
Yes.
If you see me, you're out of luck. Sorry.
That's true.
We'll see you outside.